On today's episode of The Unwritten Rule, we have an absolutely packed show for you guys, and it was all Kenny and Payton. Got to give them credit. They carried this week. I was out, but they did a ton of stuff previewing the Arkansas game. We have that for you. Also recap the Lindenwood game for men's basketball, and we have an interview with our good friend Barrett Banister, Fayetteville native, Mizzou made, at the heart of the Mizzou-Arkansas rivalry. So we talked or Peyton and Kenny talked with him all about that game, all about Barrett's just perspective on the Mizzou team, everything that's gone on, what he's watched from them this season as a former player. So a really cool perspective just on the year and, of course, on the Arkansas game. We talked with Barrett this time last year as well and got his take. So yearly required preview with Barrett Banister, head of Mizzou, Arkansas. So like I said, packed show, full Arkansas preview with Kenny and Peyton, Barrett Banister interview, Lindenwood recap, and quick hits. What more could you want to start your Saturday before the Arkansas game as Missouri builds up to look to finish the season on a strong note with another win over the old Hogs in Columbia? So great show for you guys. We'll dive right into it. The Unwritten Rule starts right now.
Marcel, where are you going with that disc? You are not putting that on again. Marcel, okay, if you press that button, you are in very, very big trouble.
Attention. Everybody stop what you're doing. It's time for The Unwritten Rule, a Mizzou sports podcast brought to you by the Believe Network, alongside Peyton Haverman and Kenny Van Doren. Here is your host, Jack Knowlton.
Welcome back to The Unwritten Rule. Today is Friday, November 29th. Still in the month of November here, Black Friday. Hopefully you're listening to us as you scamper through Best Buy trying to find the best deals. I doubt people even do that anymore. I don't even think that's a thing these days. But if you're still doing that, props to you. But let's talk some Missouri football. We got to preview the final regular season game for the Tigers hosting Arkansas on Saturday this year. I believe last year we might have released our preview on Black Friday the morning of or on Thanksgiving, because it's just been a Black Friday matchup the last couple of years. CBS in that 2:30 slot, moved to the SEC network this year, still in that 2:30 slot, but on Saturday, number 21 Tigers hosting the Razorbacks. Have already clinched a spot in bowl play with that 6th win last week. But the Tigers still have something to play for. 8-3 right now. Want to stay in that ranked spot. 4-3 in conference, could move to 5-3 and not go 500 this year in the SEC. But Peyton, just initial thoughts into this game, into this rivalry. We had Barrett Banister on last season, gave us a great feeling of the rivalry from his perspective of being an Arkansas native. But just from your fandom, I mean, where does this rivalry just kind of sit with you?
I've never been a big fan of Arkansas. I'm kind of into this rivalry. I know a lot of people, especially the older fans, probably aren't as into the Arkansas thing, but I mean, just the fan base from Arkansas alone kind of is enough to, get me into this one. It's a very, very just not my favorite fan base. They have a very high opinion of their school that I don't feel is earned. And so I think that it always makes for more compelling television. They hate Elijah Drinkwitz down there, no doubt about it. Everyone hates Elijah Drinkwitz in the SEC, but they really, really, really don't like him because him and Pittman were hired in the same cycle. And since then, Arkansas had one pretty decent season, went 9-3, won a nice bowl game. But Mizzou won a New Year's Six last year. You come into this year, Pittman was on the hot seat. Drinkwitz was one of the highest paid coaches in the SEC. So it's two programs that have kind of been going in a different direction. Arkansas's rebounded well. Like you said, they're going to a bowl this year. Last year, it was a total debacle. They were a mess. Missouri led that game at 1 point, 41-0, because as has been the case pretty much since Mizzou joined the SEC, it's been a one-sided affair. In the time, before 2021, I mean, what was the last win for Arkansas? That could be at Ken Sports Shorts. But No, I definitely take this game actually more serious than I think a lot of people do. I really always hope that Missouri gets up for this one. Um, they certainly looked motivated last year, and I think Drinkwitz will have them ready to go again.
It was fun to look back on that video that Jack made last year when Jack was in a role of making videos after every Mizzou win and just kind of reliving those highlights because it was such a stomping from the Mizzou side. I saw some Arkansas writers saying that a lot of these Razorback players probably have to get up a little bit more about after this game after being kind of embarrassed last season. One thing before we get into our three things to know heading into this matchup, Payton, mentioned it. Sam Pittman may be on the hot seat. He's in a lot better spot than I think many had anticipated coming by the end of the season. You thought there was a possibility that Sam Pittman might not even be on the sidelines for this game.
I thought it would be Bobby Petrino shaking Drinkwitz's hand after this game. That is not the case.
And in your mind now, reviewing this season, this team has played close with some teams, ended up beating Tennessee at home, which Tennessee kind of looks a little fluky as well. I saw a lot of tweets today about Imailoa's touchdowns against non-conference teams compared to SEC teams. Still probably looking at a team that's going to make the playoff, but they've beaten good teams. They've played close with some others. They've shot themselves in the foot here and there. What have you just kind of assessed from this past year of Sam Pittman?
It does seem like he's probably at least safe for this year. I'd be kind of surprised at this point. They've progressed. They're a better team on offense than they were last year. And I guess that was to be expected because no matter what you think of Bobby Petrino as a person, he's a good offensive mind, and he can scheme some things up. I definitely think we're kind of in store for a bit more of a shootout than last year. Taylen Green, he's up and down. He's a little inconsistent, but he's very, very dangerous. Probably as dangerous as pretty much anyone Mizzou has played this year, and that includes Lenore Sellers, who absolutely torched Mizzou in their game. So Taylen Green, he's a little mistake prone, 13 touchdowns through the air and to 9 picks, but he is an absolute dual threat in every sense of the word. He could torch Mizzou in a lot of ways. So Missouri's had plenty of experience with mobile QBs at this point this season. So hopefully Batoon has some answers.
Yeah, let's start there. That's with our first point, looking at Taylen Green, different quarterback than Arkansas faced last season, last couple seasons with KJ Jefferson moving on to UCF. Taylen Green might be a name that some people know. Transferred in this season, played the past couple years at Boise State, actually played for Bush Hamdan, the former quarterbacks coach for the Missouri Tigers, who's now at Kentucky as the offensive coordinator. But going a little bit deeper into Taylen Green, what makes him so much of a threat, not just in the passing game, but in the running game? And is there anyone from the past couple of years, Payton, that really comes to mind that is comparable? It is kind of hard to compare some quarterbacks at the college level these days. But is there someone that Mizzou has kind of faced in recent years in the past 2 seasons or even this season that's comparable?
The closest thing might be Lenore Sellers, just because Taylen Green, in addition to having like a true dual threat ability, he's 6'6", 230. Dude is built like a linebacker out there. He's hard to bring down, and that presented a real issue for Mizzou against Taylen Green. They're going to have to be way more sure-handed against someone like Taylen Green. He's got 468 yards on the ground plus 7 touchdowns. He also, he's got 2,500 yards through the air, 13 touchdowns. He's a playmaker. I don't know who else. He is somewhat more comparable to KJ Jefferson, I guess I'd say, but I think he's more dangerous than KJ Jefferson, really. He's definitely, I think, a faster, just way faster than KJ Jefferson, really. KJ Jefferson was able to take off and scramble a lot, but he was slower. He was also built pretty heavily, but Taylen Green is just kind of like another level. Probably a bit more mistake prone than someone like KJ Jefferson, but certainly not someone you can waltz in and just bet will take Arkansas out of the game himself.
And 13 touchdowns to 9 interceptions this season for Taylor Green. Reminded me, too, about KJ Jefferson. I remember Eli Drinkwitz mentioning this in the past few seasons now, that he recruited KJ Jefferson at one point, and he made a joke. He was like, hopefully we don't have to face him again. And then you get a quarterback that has some similar comparisons, but probably not the same success that KJ Jefferson saw at times. Look at some of these offensive grades, just game-wise, going back to that Texas game, actually performed pretty well, according to PFF. This was Arkansas's last SEC matchup in there in week 12 with an 81.3 offensive grade, 74.1 in the passing grade as well. Kind of up and down season, though, if you're looking at it on the YouTube with us. Some blues in there, which is like the best color you can have. Greens, which is right around average, or a little bit above average. Then you hit some spikes there against Auburn and Texas A&M on the road. Not the best performances there, but played well against Mississippi State, and so did the Missouri Tigers. Coming into this one, though, with an 87.6 offensive grade this season. Payton, just anything else just from Taylor Green? Some of these offensive weapons I've seen, too, for Arkansas. It is a team built on transfers. Even looking at Mizzou, some of these guys have been around here for 2 years now, so you don't really always think of them as transfers. Arkansas has a lot of guys on that side of just on the offense that are new guys, or just guys that have been there for maybe 2 years. There's a wide receiver in that system who is a former Major League Baseball player. So, how much do you know about some of these weapons that he's going to be throwing the ball to?
Yeah, you're talking about Monte Harrison, who does have 2 catches this season. But, Andrew Armstrong is probably the one to look out for. He's a 1,000-yard receiver. He was actually at Arkansas last year as well. He's a transfer from, I believe, like Texas A&M Commerce or something like that.
He was actually a Missouri Tiger or Missouri Target in the 2022.
That's right, and he never made the visit. So that's probably the one to watch out for. Only 1 touchdown, surprisingly enough, through the air, but definitely if you got a 1,000-yard receiver, that's absolutely someone you got to key in on, especially with a secondary for Mizzou that has really, really struggled at times. Jaquindon Jackson, he's kind of taken over the feature back spot since Rocket Sanders left.
Former quarterback.
Probably not much of a threat to me, like as someone like Taylor Green is. I don't think he'll be like the focal point by any stretch, but again, not someone you can just overlook really, really easily. 5.4 yards a carry and 12 touchdowns on the ground for him.
I'll throw Rashad Dubin out there as well. He has 54 carries, 329 yards this year. He actually started at running back in their most previous game against Louisiana Tech. He's averaging 6.1 yards per carry. Just another name to know there. He was I think 5 less snaps than Jackson in this past game. So another back just to know there. Moving to our second point, kind of looking at this defense. It kind of probably hasn't been one of the strongest for Arkansas in recent memory. Just looking at these PFF grades against Texas here, a couple of guys in the 70s, but no one really jumping off the page with a performance against the best team in the SEC by record in the standings. Landon Jackson, that's probably the name that a lot of people know, that kind of just jumps off the page. Former LSU 4-star who ended up transferring to Arkansas, coming off the edge, a pretty big guy. Payton, what have you seen from Landon Jackson the last couple of years?
Yeah, Landon Jackson is a straight-up draft prospect now. The Arkansas defense in general has been kind of up and down. They held Tennessee to 14 points, and that's a offense, I think, under Heupel, everyone's accustomed to being really explosive. They held Texas to 20, but again, at the same time, they gave up 63 to Ole Miss, gave up 39 to a very anemic Oklahoma State team, and that was in overtime, mind you, but still, it's been an up and down unit. Landon Jackson is no doubt their best player. I've seen places that have him as a first-round pick. He leads them in sacks with 6.5. Next closest 3.5. So it's not a defense that looks like it really gets after you. 24 sacks total on the year. I think it's a favorable matchup for Missouri. Mizzou's offense has really kind of been clicking the last few weeks, and this seems like a potential good matchup for them.
What do you want to see from this Mizzou offense in the final regular season game? This is probably one of the last times you'll see Luther Burden, and we'll get into the third point here in a second. Luther Burden, Brady Cook, Theo Weiss, Nate Noel, Marcus Carroll, all in the field at the same time and together, pending, if some of these guys decide to opt out of the postseason bowl game. What do you just want to see? Just one last go around with all these guys on the field together.
Kind of just like how you said it there, pretty much like one last dance. It'd be nice to send Luther out on kind of an explosive last week. I think he kind of deserves that treatment. You can't do it at the expense of your game plan and winning the game. It's still important to get that 9th win, no doubt. 9-3 looks a lot better than 8-4. But I would hope they just kind of keep doing what they've been doing these last couple weeks. I mean, they've looked really good. And there's still things to clean up, they got to finish drives more and more. I want to see less field goals at this point in the year. It's not really something I think we're hoping can be fixed as much as just like, hopefully they can just straight up do it for one game. So hopefully there just are a few more trips to the end zone, quite frankly.
And we'll spin that into our final point here, and we'll start with the availability report that's was posted here Wednesday. Disclaimer there, we are recording here on Wednesday, so we didn't have to record on Thanksgiving. But there's a couple more guys on there that are out than usual. One that's been out the past couple weeks, and that's Mookie Cooper, who would have been a part of the senior day festivities. He still will be, but just not in a playing capacity because he did undergo season-ending surgery, career-ending surgery for his time at Missouri on Tuesday. A guy who transferred in from Ohio State, was one of the big guys that Drinkwitz got in. He got him in the transfer portal, someone that is from the St. Louis area. Missouri needed him. I remember a lot of people were very excited. Our sophomore year, correct? Yeah.
Yep.
When he first got on the field. So just looking at that, I mean, how big was Mookie for Mizzou, and ended up just never getting that touchdown again after that 21 season. But his last catch as a Missouri Tiger was a big one against Auburn.
Yeah, his last catch, like almost his last play, it feels like. I don't remember him touching the field after that, but that 70-yard play where he just came up a yard short of that touchdown, which is such a bummer for him. It really is kind of just a bummer that's it for Mookie Cooper. He was someone that was pretty much an all reliable for the Tigers throughout his time here. I was always frustrated with the way they used to use him. I thought that they would use him way too gimmicky. Eventually, he just became more of like a bona fide wide receiver 3. Very overlooked guy last year. He had a few really big catches for them. Was always a very reliable target. I kind of don't think he is going to have much of a chance at the next level. He's very short. He's not super fast, but he was a very reliable receiver for Mizzou and someone that I think hopefully a lot of Missouri fans kind of see the value in. He didn't put up eye-popping numbers or anything, but to see like Mookie Cooper come in from Ohio State and like kind of be like a legit contributor on a team that won a New Year's Six, that's cool to see. That's a success story. So very big bummer that his career ends on an injury at Missouri. It's not fitting for him at all. But it is fitting. His last catch was just kind of a out of nowhere 70-yard game. Very, very good that can kind of be his last memory. But it does suck he doesn't get to go out on his terms.
That was very Mookie Cooper-esque. He went out on a play that was desperately needed for Missouri to complete that comeback against Auburn in the homecoming game. A couple more guys to throw out there before we look at talk about some of these seniors that'll be walking. Shamar McNeil, backup cornerback in his second year with the Tigers, is out in this game, just straight up out. Wasn't listed as doubtful or anything like that. Brett LeBlanc, the long snapper, All-American, and who actually has a scholarship now, he's out for this game as well. He's the long snapper on punts. And then backup offensive lineman Logan Riker, big-time recruit out of Kansas City two cycles ago, is also out for this game, along with just the regulars we've seen the past couple of weeks. And then Quan Lacey, the freshman running back who got banged up there in the Mississippi State game, is listed as questionable, so probably in a good spot for him. See if he can contribute in this final game the season against Arkansas. Payton, let's talk just quickly about these seniors. Luther Burden will be walking with the seniors, only a junior, but likely his final game at Memorial Stadium. Everyone is kind of expecting that. Eli Drinkwitz did mention in his press conference Tuesday that no decision has officially been made on what's going to happen next for him, but we're all just kind of assuming he's going to take that first round look in the NFL draft.
Yeah, I think that's just a courteous thing for Drinkwitz to do so that Luther can put out his own statement, go out on his own terms. I do 100% expect this to be Luther's last game as a Missouri Tiger. Quite frankly, it should be. I think it'd be very negligible to even have him play in the bowl game. I would hold him out if I was Drinkwitz, even if Luther said he'd be open to playing. Just no sense in doing it. Luther Burden, coming in as like just this, when you're a 5-star and you go to a place like Missouri, you have like the whole world kind of placed on your shoulders. It can probably be really daunting and overwhelming and like almost impossible feeling at times to try and live up to that hype. I'd be hard pressed to say Luther's time at Mizzou was not 100% a wall-to-wall success. No, it didn't end like in the storybook fashion. His numbers are going to wind up being behind what they were last year. They didn't make the playoff. But man, oh man, I mean, he made it. Like, he was just like, Drinkwitz was getting like recruiting wins before. That was like the one where you're like, oh my God, like this is like a really different feel, like different time at Mizzou. Like that was what Luther Burden's commitment really felt like. He's probably as talented a player as we'll ever see walk through Mizzou's doors. Kind of like just the biggest national star at Missouri. He's the guy that is just kind of the poster child for the program right now. Again, he probably had crazy NIL offers from everywhere, even after his freshman. And heck, probably even after last year, he could have had opportunities elsewhere if he really, really wanted, but he did not. Mizzou took good care of him. He'll go out as a folk hero. I know he's a junior. I think he's kind of earned the right to get honored. Just don't call the ceremony senior day for all I care, but Luther Burden should be able to grab a rock if they win. I'm very happy to see they're doing something like that for him.
Yeah, when you look at this era of Missouri football, not even just like when Drinkwitz took the job in 2019 and in the first season in 2020, everyone's going to remember the Ennis Rakestraw video of when Ennis called Eli and told him that he was coming to Mizzou. But
that was just a live commitment announcement, not even that.
Oh, sorry, live commitment announcement. And so you're seeing that. But I think everyone just will know that, this was the defining chapter in this era for Missouri football. And it's not over. I think there's still opportunities for this, stretch of Missouri football to grow in upcoming recruiting classes with guys like Matt Zollers coming in and just even guys on the team now. But nothing will kind of compare to what that kind of did to the landscape, because a lot of people don't realize, like, he was the first class that was just NIL driven. Like that was the first year of college football that, that mattered so much for high school recruits and was kind of dictating what could happen here. And that was just a huge step forward for Missouri, a huge step, in the SEC to kind of see a guy make a decision like that. I want to look at just one more guy. There's going to be, a handful. 20 plus seniors will be walking and, receiving their flowers for their time at Missouri, but that's Brady Cook. And I think it's just like Mr. Missouri. He's just been Mizzou through and through his entire life. He posted some photos heading into this week about his senior week. We looked at it last year. Darius Robinson put on the Mizzou plate, but I think if anyone that would ever put one on as well would be Brady Cook. But I could also just see him keep his name just because he's gone his whole career as a Missouri Tiger, his whole life as a Missouri Tiger. For you, Payton, what is this kind of just like reflection of this week meant to you?
Yeah, I don't think this is Brady Cook's last game. I'd be really shocked if Brady Cook didn't play the bowl game. But you want to just kind of talk about someone that probably has, I don't know, I can't even really describe it, because everyone after the 2022 season, myself included, like wanted nothing to do with Brady Cook starting, really. He wasn't outright terrible in 2022, but the offense was just not very good, and Brady Cook was the quarterback for an offense that was not very good. And that is going to earn you a lot of frustration at the end of the day. But man, he had if I were Brady Cook, I would have probably looked to transfer. The way Mizzou kind of treated just the Mizzou community and even the coaching staff, they tried to recruit over him like every single offseason. I mean, with JT Daniels, Jaden Daniels, Jerry Bohannon. Like Mizzou did not want this guy to start for them. That's just kind of the only way to put it. But he has just overcome all that. He built himself up into a straight up really good quarterback last year and still a really good quarterback this year, I think. It's been choppy at times, but all in all, still a good body of work. I like you said, I don't think anyone kind of embodies Mizzou more than him. For him to have stuck with it through all those years, I think kind of proves that he just lives and breathes Mizzou. And honestly, fans still aren't 100% fair to him, I don't think, but it doesn't really matter what all of us think because his team very clearly would like go to war for him. Like just that energy, like when he came back into the Auburn game, like just everything you see, like everything you hear from coaches, teammates, like Theo Weiss always goes out of his way to be like, he says all the time, like, don't play with my quarterback. Like that's just kind of the guy that Brady Cook is. I think that's how I'll remember him. He led the most successful season that Mizzou has had in well over a decade. I mean, what's his total record now? I mean, he didn't start the Oklahoma game, so you take one win off there. That's 7, 18, 24-7. You got 3 this year. Like he's well above 500 is the point. He led a very, very, very successful era in Missouri history. That's how I'm going to remember Brady Cook. If people want to remember him as like a game manager that maybe put a ceiling on what Missouri could have been, you can do that. That's not what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I think when people will reflect on, this era of Mizzou football and look back on it a couple years from now, decades from now, I think they'll remember a lot of positives from Brady Cook's career. And I thought James Franklin said it well. He posted something last season when Brady Cook was having a good stretch and talked about how, he went through those issues where they were seeing, some success, but Mizzou fans just weren't backing him. And it's just Brady Cook kind of ran through the same era, and then James Franklin saw success. And it just took time. And I think a lot of people had to realize too, Brady Cook wasn't a big time recruit. I mean, he's a 3-star, yes, from Chaminade, but when he got that Missouri offer, I mean, he was pretty much locked in. He wanted to play there. Max Baker, our good friend, some people might know him from his time at the Missouri and St. Louis Post-Dispatch and the KC Star. He talked to him, reached out to him after Barry Odom was dismissed. And he said, I didn't commit to Barry Odom. He committed to Mizzou because that was his thing. He wanted to be a Missouri Tiger. I think he's kind of embodies the true son, Mr. Mizzou moniker. And I think that's just what people are going to remember Brady Cook for.
Yeah, I think that really should be how he's remembered. There's going to be people that probably take some time to realize that, but James Franklin is probably a good example because they did a whole lot of winning under James Franklin. And it seems like the fan base did not really embrace him until after he had left.
And this is fresh too. I think maybe a couple weeks from now, once the season is over, we'll kind of look back and maybe, have some different thoughts, but definitely kind of like the feelings toward how Brady Cook kind of lived out his career as a Missouri Tiger. But that's going to do it for our preview of the Mizzou-Arkansas game. Again, that is on Saturday this year at 2:30 on SEC Network. No ABC, and of course, the SEC is no longer on CBS. So you'll find that one on the SEC Network at 2:30. Before we get to quick hits, we're going to take a quick look at the Missouri men's basketball game against Lindenwood here on Wednesday night. I think we just have to start with Caleb Grill. There's not too much we know right now about it, but Missouri spokesperson said that he was responsive. We saw that he gave a thumbs up as he was leaving on the stretcher, but it is a head and neck injury. It appeared that he took an elbow to the back of the head on accident when he was going up for a rebound and fell immediately to the ground. He was taken to the local Missouri hospital for precautionary reasons. you never want to assume anything. You don't want to assume, what's going to happen next. But I mean, Caleb Grill is a very essential part to this team, and not even just as a player, but as a person. I mean, a lot of the guys rave about him, and it's just probably a really sucky situation just to see kind of him go down with something so serious.
No joke. Especially it sucks for him. I mean, right as he is starting to get hot, like real hot, as hot as he's been the last few games. I mean, he gets hurt. I really hope for his sake it's not serious, especially after having to miss pretty much all of last year with an injury. And like you said, I mean, he's Missouri's top scorer this year. They aren't going to go anywhere without him. So for both his sake and for Missouri's sake, I mean, I really hope he's not too banged up. Scary situation whenever you see a guy get carded, just stretchered off. But he did give a thumbs up. They said he was responsive and it was precautionary. So fingers crossed in that regard. I think Missouri kind of, after he went down, I mean, it kind of showed in this Lindenwood game. It was probably their worst performance since Eastern Washington. Just not a whole ton of intensity from them. Just a very much like a let's just get this one over with game.
It's definitely something hard too. You're not in that huddle, but in the minds of those players. But just thinking about what could have happened, what was happening then. But it's always good to kind of rally and fuel yourself to get that win. I think for Caleb, and that's kind of what they did. They were playing a little bit close there with Lindenwood, up 37-27 at half, but it stretches there in the first 10 minutes. Lindenwood was in front, and you've seen this a couple times with Mizzou, but Mizzou pulling away for an 81-61 win over Lindenwood, outscoring Lindenwood 44-34 in the second half. Just initial thoughts, Payton. I mean, any guys that kind of stood out to you, and maybe some strides you saw from some of these players?
I thought Marquez Warwick found a nice touch today. 3 for 7 from beyond the arc, 6 for 10 from the field. Trent Pierce kind of had a rocky start. He finished strong, 4 for 6. That's a good night for him. Aiden Shaw, liked what I saw from him. I thought he gave them really good defensive possessions in particular. Tony Perkins, probably the healthiest he's looked. 5 for 8 from the field, did hit a 3-pointer as well, had 18 points. He got to the line for 9 shots, so that's really nice to see from him. Big bench day because the starters were just, non-existent. Honor Boateng played 3 minutes. Mark Mitchell didn't do much. Ant Robinson and Tamar Bates were also pretty quiet. Josh Gray kind of looked rough at times. It was just not a good defensive day for Mizzou, I thought. A lot, like you see the numbers just straight up, like Lindenwood only went 3 for 20 from deep, 21 for 59 from the field. That's 35.6%. A lot of it was just Lindenwood's own doing, just missing a lot of shots. I didn't think Mizzou did a good job of stopping the Lions from just kind of dribbling in and getting a lot of penetration. And I thought Gray did not respond super well either. He wasn't getting much help from the guys on the perimeter, but it was just kind of a rough night defensively in general. It just kind of looked like nobody was super jacked up for that game.
I will point out Josh Gray did have a pretty monster dunk. I don't know if you were watching at that point early on in the game. So he did have kind of that small presence, only with 4 points there. Let's talk about Tony Perkins just for one more point before we kind of look ahead here. Anthony Robinson did start this game, had 5 points, 7 rebounds. Very physical player this season, very confident. He's a captain in training, or a captain in training for a reason right now, kind of taking that step forward in his leadership. But seeing this from Tony Perkins, how huge is this just at the guard role, especially when you have someone that started at the Big Ten level with Iowa and now is coming off the bench and putting up these numbers?
Yeah, it's really big. Tony Perkins is a guy they're going to need to get going just to provide more of that spark, especially if Grill is going to be out for a bit. You need guys like Marquez Warwick, Tony Perkins, or even maybe someone like Jacob Cruz. They got to get hot if Missouri's going to go anywhere. So that's a very encouraging thing. I don't love that he only had 1 assist because he's going to have to handle the ball a lot. So you'd like to see a little more of that. Ant had 5 tonight. So I think Ant still is probably more of the true point guard right now, but it was a very, very, very encouraging step for Tony Perkins.
I did hear the broadcast point this out, and this is my final point from this game, is that a lot of these passes that they were making early on in the game, they would leave their feet and then pass it. So I think there was maybe some errant plays there just in the passing game on the offense. It probably just wasn't contributing to too much success.
Yeah, it's just a sloppy game. I mean, 20 turnovers for Missouri to just 12 for Lindenwood. That's something that's probably going to drive Dennis Gates up a wall. It is what it is. They still had more than enough talent to handle it. I mean, they still won this game by 20 points, but they've had much better nights so far this season.
All right, let's take just a quick look ahead. We'll get into more of a preview for some of these upcoming bigger games for the Missouri Tigers. But Cal on December 3rd, this is the SEC ACC Challenge. Of course, Tigers will not be playing this weekend. That next game is that Tuesday, December 3rd. At Mizzou Arena, this one's going to be on SEC Network. And then following that is the big one in the Border War Showdown, December 8th on that Sunday on ESPN2 against Kansas. 6 p.m. for Cal, noon for Kansas. It's going to be a tough stretch. I guess we can maybe throw in there that they do play Long Island University, another tough one, kind of up there with Kansas, and Jacksonville State. But then you get into Illinois, and then you have one last non-con game against Alabama State before SEC play starts. So a good stretch of competition here for the Tigers. What are you just looking for, Payton, within these games, just continuing moving forward before SEC play starts?
Man, it'd be really nice because, first of all those blood donors got to be wins. Jacksonville State, LIU, Alabama State, those all have to be wins, rather convincing ones, I'd hope. You cannot lose any of those. It'd be real if you come out of, that's 3 pivotal games there in Kansas, California, and Illinois. If you could come out of that with 1 win, I'm probably decently enough satisfied. If you come out of that with 2, I think I'd be pretty thrilled with that. And obviously the 2 most likely are going to be Cal and Illinois. You're more likely than not going to get Kansas. They're the number 1 team in the nation right now. But a man can dream. Dreaming costs nothing. So, but no, I would hope that Missouri can maybe just scratch off at least that Cal game. Cal is a decent team, but I think they're one that Missouri should beat, especially at home.
We'll get more into that too. In the Sunday recording, hopefully with Jack as well, to talk some basketball there. That's going to do it from our Mizzou sports talk. Mizzou beats Lindenwood 81-61. You have some couple of days off from Missouri basketball, and then they'll be back in action on Tuesday against Cal. But until then, we'll finish the show with quick hits. Well, before we get to quick hits, I was wrong about that. We're not going just yet. We're going to welcome on a very special guest, a reoccurring guest now. It is his second time on the Unwritten Rule, and that's Barrett Banister, former Missouri wide receiver, former Missouri captain, and no better guy to talk to about the Arkansas-Mizzou rivalry than the guy who lived and breathed Arkansas football before going to Mizzou and continuing his athletic career. Barrett, welcome back. We'll start with something, because I remember last time you were on with us, you were in your car. It was daylight savings, was getting dark out. You couldn't be around your boss at the time because he was an Arkansas fan ahead of that rivalry game. Ended up being a pretty big one in Mizzou's favor. But what has just the past kind of year looked like for you?
Yeah, so kind of been a year of change. So I ended up leaving Northwest Arkansas, and now I live up in Overland Park, Greater Kansas City, I guess, is for the people that don't know that. And Bears just fired Eberflus, just all that. Former Mizzou guy. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, off topic there. But yeah. So move up to Kansas City, still doing investment advising, financial planning. Love it. It's great to be able to help people out and just kind of, find the purpose of money in their life and help them steward that. And working at a firm called V Wealth up there, and father-in-law works there, and he's one of the managing partners, and he's a huge Mizzou fan. So anytime I want to talk Mizzou sports or anything, he's right there. And, he's probably bringing it up more than I am. So that's a blast. And then I got a little baby boy on the way in January. So lots of stuff changing in my life, but it's been an awesome year. Love it. Been keeping up with the Tigers, obviously, and got a big one on Saturday.
You're the first guest we've had that's broken news, especially something of that extent of a coach being fired. Barrett, I wanted to talk about that. The family is growing, but getting back to Columbia now, we talked about before you just jumped on. You've been to a lot of games this season.
Yeah.
And coming back for this one, senior day, you lived through it. A lot of these guys are your former teammates, still your friends. Can you kind of just talk about, seeing guys like Brady Cook, Luther Burden, ones you played with that are taking that final step with the Tigers?
Yeah, I think it's a cool thing for me, just kind of being on the back end of it. And it means that I'm getting freaking gray hair and I'm getting old. But like these kids like Will Norris and Luke Bauer and Brady, like all these guys. And I kind of saw it whenever I was, the young guy at Mizzou. Like I had gotten really close with Drew and Paul Adams, Alec Ablin, a lot of those guys. And they kind of took me under their wing whenever I was a young kid up there. And I'm like, man, why are they hanging out with a freshman and sophomore, and then you become a senior and it's like, okay, there's these young guys on the team that are really cool dudes and you get to know them. And then now they're the old guys. Right. And so, like we were talking, like I'm going to go watch them today at practice and just, see Brady and Will and them just kind of soak up these last, final moments of being Tigers and the regular season, so to speak. Bowl season's kind of its own deal. But their last time in Faroe, and it'll be really cool for them. They've worked so hard to, get the program to where it is now, and so super fired up for them. And then obviously catch up with, coaches like Coach Peeler and Looper and Coach Drink, all those guys. So it'll be a really exciting weekend.
And another guy that's walking. I mean, I know Kenny mentioned it there too, but Luther, even though he's just a junior technically, is walking because I think pretty much the worst kept secret. That guy's probably going to the draft. So I'm just curious, like, your thoughts on Luther, like him walking, like just your overall feelings towards him and what he's meant to the school.
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys probably heard Brady's comments earlier in the week of just like, I still remember sitting there watching that game on my phone of Luther versus CBC. Not Luther, East St. Louis versus CBC. Luther was playing, and him returning that punt. And seeing the type of player and the caliber of player that he is, and seeing his growth at Mizzou, right? I mean, so many people want expectations and results so fast in his freshman year. Like, there was development, there was growth. He was probably playing out of position a little bit at X, and now he's playing in the slot. Thank goodness he was. I wouldn't have played if he was playing in the slot his freshman year. But now to see kind of these steps that Luther's taken, I mean, his game speaks for itself, right? Like, the dude's a stud. He's, for all intents and purposes, going to be a first-round guy. And, I think there's these traditionalists and purists that are kind of like, it's not senior day for – this is Luther's senior year, fellas. Like, he's a different kind of athlete than the majority of college players. He's earned the right to walk on senior day. This is his senior day. I don't know that for sure. I'm guessing. There's guys that, they've earned the right to walk with those guys on Saturday. And, I'm super excited for him and his future. And, he's earned it.
I want to talk about Will Norris. A lot of people don't talk about him enough. He's a Columbia kid. He's Mizzou through and through.
Yeah.
But he also changed college football. He has a rule because of him. You played in that game, that Kentucky game 2 years ago. Do you guys ever talk about that?
Oh, I text Will, Luke, and Brady probably the most of anyone that's still on the team. Chris Cray a little bit too. Yeah, I mean, Will, we're always just like, dude, you realize the legacy you left? Like, you changed a freaking rule, man. Like that's big time. Yeah, I mean, obviously we wish that game went the other way, but like, I think Will's just a prime example of just like, still what's good about college sports, right? Like with all the change and all the moving parts and stuff that are happening, there's still guys like Will that are just like, Will's fired up to get to go into the building every day and have the opportunity to, lift weights from Missouri and practice from Missouri and be in the locker room. And, the number of guys, I mean, even the Brady's, like obviously Brady's done well with NIL, but like the guys that have been there for 4 or 5 years, like that number's just shrinking in college football and college sports. And, Will's a special teams guy and he freaking loves it. And that's awesome. And like he said, like, is that what he dreamed of whenever he signed that national letter of intent? Probably not. but is he still just super grateful for the opportunity and, soaking up every last moment that he can? He is. And so, yeah, Will's as good of a dude as they come. He's going to be super, you know, he's going to excel in whatever he does in life. And he knows that. And, there's no other guy in the locker room, I think, that connects as good with every single person from all different backgrounds and creeds than Will. I mean, Will is just he is the locker room guy, and you love to have him there.
I mean, maybe the biggest senior there, and you've touched on him a little bit before, like the true senior is Brady, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously he's had to go through quite a lot to get to this senior day. He, at times, it felt like really didn't even have the backing of his own fan base, but he stuck it through and kind of, I think, earned the admiration of pretty much everyone. And I think that says a lot about him and just his love for Mizzou. I mean, what do you think his impact will be when we look back on his time here? And what do you think his emotions are just going to be? Because it's been quite the journey for him to get to this point.
Yeah, I mean, I would hope as fans, when you look back, like, obviously everyone had like hopes and admirations of, playoffs or whatever. I mean, dude's won freaking, if things go our way Saturday for the good guys. I mean, it's what, 9 wins and then 11 last year.
Mm-hmm.
Is that right? I mean,
yeah.
So 20 of his last like 24, 25. I mean,
pretty much.
I mean, what else are we thinking here, guy? Like that's freaking good ball. And I think when you especially look back at where the program was, I mean, we were just above a 500 squad whenever I was there, and the years before I was there, it was a mess with all the riots and stuff like that going. So he's kind of returned Mizzou to where it's like, hey, we're in the talks of playoff football, and I think that's amazing, awesome. Obviously, it's had its up and downs. He's had to freaking trot out there when the whole stadium's booing at him. When, I mean, he's not getting any protection. No one's helping in other areas of the field, and it's just like he didn't say a word about it. His head coach defended him, and he just went out there and continued to win games. And now we've kind of gotten in this position where Mizzou's in close games, and we expect to win these games, right? Like that one at South Carolina, I think everyone was kind of like, man, like, thought we were going to win that one. Like 3 years ago, people were like, whoa, we're going to find a way to lose it. Like, the mentality and the attitude's changing around Missouri, which I think is awesome. And Brady, he different than a lot of people. Like, he grew up a Missouri fan, right? Like, this was his school, this was his dream, and he's gotten to do it for freaking 5 years. Like, how cool is that? And what a journey it's been for him. I'm sure he's going to feel a lot of emotions before the game, and then that thing's going to kick off, and he's going to be ready to go and beat the hell out of Arkansas.
You're talking to us, right now, and you're in Columbia. You're getting back to the game this weekend. You're going to see your guys, see Brady, Will, Luke at practice. Yeah. I mean, what do you do when you kind of go to those practices, get to chop it up with those guys? And then after that, I mean, what's your go-to spots in Columbia? That was something Jack wanted to know.
Yeah, so this morning we went to Ozark Mountain Biscuit Company, and I think that's the best breakfast in Columbia. It's fantastic. And so, yeah, I'm in my wife's grandparents' basement right now. And then at practice, I mean, obviously I'll say hi to them, but I want them to be focused, be locked in. I just kind of go back, and I enjoy just watching ball, right? Like, so that'll be fun for me to just kind of go out there and just like, live through it all again, right? Like, obviously I'll never be back out there, but it's cool to just go out there and see those guys go through it and all that. And dinner wise, I mean, I think I really enjoy Billiards. Billiards is a good burger in town. Murray's obviously is a great place if you want to go have a glass of wine, get some, was it lemon pesto chicken? So those are probably my spots. I know when I was in college, we ended up at Billiards a lot. Billiards was fire. So, yeah.
And I mean, just the Arkansas game, I know obviously we alluded to it earlier and we talked about it when we talked to you last time. I mean, the Arkansas game probably has a little bit more meaning to you being an Arkansas guy yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You weren't recruited by the Razorbacks. So I'm sure it took on a bit more of a personal thing for you. I mean, what is this game? Missouri in the SEC, a lot of people make the remarks like they don't have a lot of true rivals. I think that changes a little bit with Oklahoma in the picture.
Yeah.
But a lot of people do take Arkansas legitimately like serious now. I mean, what are your thoughts just on that rivalry in general?
I think a big thing in the locker room, like this is a big game I know it is I can't speak for Arkansas. But I know in our locker room, whenever I was there, and it still is this is a big game. It's a trophy game. We don't like them. And as long as they want to just continue ignoring us and saying we wish we were playing other people who they also lose to, like, I mean, they can keep doing that game if they want. I mean, was it the John Neighbors and all these guys that write all this crap? I mean, my granddad played in the 60s. They had some good years then. It's 2024. I mean, trust me, my granddad won a lot of games with the Razorbacks back then, but it's a new era of college football, and you can focus on what's ahead of you, and we play them every year, so they better wrap their heads around it and get ready to play football. And they might be ready to go on Saturday. I don't know. Obviously we got to play that game, but I just think it's kind of funny the attitude that their fan base has, and the attitude that they think that they should have towards Missouri. You play the games that are on your schedule, and this is the teams that are on our schedule. And I know Coach Drinkwitz is motivated as crap to play against them every year, and he has our guys ready to go. And it's why we've won, 8 of the last 9 or something like that. They've never won a game in Columbia. I mean, they can keep. I hope they keep not caring. It's awesome. Yeah. It's great for us, and they can say, and they can talk about how their program's this and that. Let's look at the last 10 years.
Yeah, I think that's a good one that I wanted to my closing question for you. I get a two-parter. Moving to Kansas City now, a little bit further from your family, friends in Arkansas, the former boss, all these ties to some of those Razorback fans. Have you been able to talk any trash? And then my second one is, you've been on a team that's gotten to change the borderline trophy, putting in the Mizzou one. I mean, What was that kind of like? What's that feeling like to change that? And then have you been able to talk any trash?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like I said, I mean, I don't play anymore. And so, I mean, obviously I can give people a hard time, but at the end of the day, it's the players that play the game. And so I like to let their play do the talking, and, whatever happens, happens. But obviously there's bragging rights that come with it. I think all my friends know where I stand on this thing, and they don't have, if they want to come asking questions, they don't have to look too hard to find my opinion on stuff. So that, I guess that answers the first part of your question. And the second part, that it was pretty, because 21, when we got beat there, obviously sucked for me, hated that. They beat us that day. They were, they had a good football team that year. And then in 22, I didn't get to play just because I had hurt my knee the game before, and I had a bone bruise that I just couldn't go. And, it was really cool just because, Brady and those guys talked to me and just were like, hey, we're going to win this one for you. And to be able to have those guys kind of step up to the plate and, deliver on what they said, and get that trophy back in the locker room, smoke some cigars. It was actually the first and only cigar I've ever had, but damn, it felt good. So, yeah, that was awesome. And I hope they do it again on Saturday. Those guys need to go get that rock from the Rock M, and I'm excited for them.
Barrett, I'll get you out of here on 2 quick ones. I'm a big uniform guy. I've always been a pretty big fan of that. Mizzou loves to mix and match uniforms now. You played in a whole ton of different ones, like 2 different eras almost. So I'm curious, do you have a favorite uniform set that you wore at Mizzou?
I love the all black, dude. I really did. The all black with the block M was probably my favorite. I also love, gosh, I guess it was 2018 or 2019. We had those all white. It was the ones with Christian Holmes Sip is what we called him, but he was like in the snow, and that it was
Yeah,
like we took
it
that
was like a
picture. I
black
loved those.
M.
Yeah, I loved those white uniforms. Our white uniforms now look great too. So those are kind of I would say probably my two favorites. The one-off that we did in the Liberty Bowl too, with like the Sailor Tiger or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Those were nice too. So big fan of those.
And then last question for you. I know last time you mentioned you're a pretty big golfer. Do you have a go-to golf course in Overland Park right now?
Yeah, so I'm actually a member up at Loch Lloyd, and so really enjoy it down there. It's a good club, good track, and so I've gotten to play a good bit this year. And then, anytime I'm back down in Fayetteville, I'll play at Fayetteville Country Club where I grew up, and in Columbia here, I play a lot over at CCMO Country Club in Missouri. So I play a bunch. My wife probably will try and reel me back in a little bit when the little kid's out there, but we'll see. Hopefully I can continue to get some rounds in and keep my game where it's at.
Have you been hitting any balls over your house? It's like the new trend right now. Bryson DeChambeau's doing.
My house is probably a little bit smaller than Bryson, so it wouldn't be as hard of a shot. But yeah, I mean, that honestly, he's a pretty entertaining guy, and I really enjoy. I mean, dude's so smart. Like, I think it was Phil Mickelson who was talking on one of his videos, and he was just like, the average golfer, right, is like, there's Dustin Johnson who like hits and just does not care. Like, I say he doesn't care, he cares, but like he just kind of plays with that attitude of just like, I'm gonna hit the crap out of the ball, I'm gonna go get it and figure it out. And then there's Bryson, who's like dissecting every little thing about like that he needs to dissect. And then they're like, everyone else is like somewhere in the middle. And he's like, you really don't want to be in the middle, because I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about like, okay, there's this, it's this temperature, it's this wind. And I'm really not even thinking about everything I need to think about. And then when I hit a bad shot, I'm like, this, I'm pissed, right? And he was just like, you want to actually be where you're like, you don't care about golf, like, and you just kind of hit and go find it, or be like Bryson, where you're actually thinking about everything you need to think about. So thought that stuff was really interesting. Totally off topic, but yeah, those guys are fascinating, and they're just a different level of good. And so it's really fun being able to watch them. And I mean, he's best in the world, some of them. So
yeah, it feels like some of those baseball nerds kind of have bled into the golf world as well now with how much they know. And just wait till it takes over football too.
I know. Well,
too.
I guess some of the analytic stuff is already here, and it'll be interesting to see what happens if, AI continues to develop the way it is. I mean, are people going to start using AI and analysis like that for play calling and all of that? I mean, and in the world of, the markets, right? Like it's just crazy. Great. World's changes fast, and hopefully nothing changes on Saturday and the good guys win. And that's what we're all hoping for.
Mm-hmm.
Good tangent. It's always fun to talk golf with you too, Barrett. We know that's one of your loves right now, but thanks again for joining us. It's always good to talk with you, talk about that Arkansas rivalry as well. That Arkansas game, of course, 3:30 this Saturday on SEC Network, no longer the Black Friday game. You can tune into it then, or whenever you're listening to us. You might have already listened to it, but always good to have Barrett on. And we'll finish the show with quick hits. All right, quick hits time. This is a fun one. I kind of just found it last second because I was looking up why Charles Harris was waived by the Panthers when he had a team-leading 3 sacks and was playing 60% of the defensive snaps for the first couple of weeks before being inactive week 10. He was waived by the Panthers because the Panthers claimed to Caleb Evans, a little swap for Missouri player there. Caleb Evans, who was waived by the Vikings last week. Day 2 pick for the Vikings, former Missouri corner. He's with the Panthers now, and Charles Harris got picked up by the Eagles. So I think both of them are in some good spots. Of course, Caleb Evans would probably like to be on a winning team in a spot with the Vikings, but he does get back with an NFL team pretty quickly. Just a little Missouri swap.
Don't see this every day. Probably won't ever see it again. I mean, how about that? Once in a blue moon, a Missouri Tiger is swapped for a Missouri Tiger on a roster.
You'll see Drew Lock get waived in probably 10 years for a 20 or 34-year-old Brady Cook who's still kicking it as a backup. Payton, what's your jersey of the week?
My jersey of the week, speaking of which, is going to be Drew Lock, because it looks like we're going to get some primetime Turkey Day Drew Lock for the Giants. It looks like Tommy DeVito will not be able to play for the San Francisco Giants, the New York Giants, because of an arm injury. He shouldn't have been starting in the first place. But now that wrong has been righted, Adam Schefter, of course, the famed ESPN insider, says it looks like Giants QB Drew Lock on Thanksgiving Day versus the Cowboys. So get ready for that. A little bit of little fun coming up.
I don't even think Adam Schefter was reporting anything there, and he's probably going to get a lot of credit for that tweet. He was just quoting Jordan
Renan.
Yeah. Jack's jersey of the week, staying in the world of football, going back to the college football landscape. And that's here's a report from Pete Thamel. Sources: Missouri redshirt junior center Connor Tollison has informed the staff that he plans to return next season. He was considered a top NFL prospect at his position before suffering a knee injury against Oklahoma earlier this month. This photo from him is from his freshman season, though.
Yeah.
But this is Connor Tollison coming back for next season.
Look, at the end of the day, you're better off with a 34-game starter on the O-line than not. Especially, I mean, Marcus Bryant and Cameron Johnson are absolutely gone. They're out of eligibility. You hope Armand Membu could be back, but you never really know. He seems to at least have some buzz for the draft. And then after that, it's a lot of moving parts. I mean, you could have, Caden Green obviously will be back for you. Maybe he plugs back into left guard. I believe Drake Heismeyer has eligibility left. That's at least what the Mizzou site says. So maybe he takes one of those interior spots as well. Overall, it's a plus for Missouri.
Thamel added there that he did have successful knee surgery. Not Thamel, but Connor Tollison. And he'll be back, looking to be back in the upcoming months. So not an exact timetable, but that's probably good news there for Connor Tollison, the Missouri Tigers.
Yep. And here it is.
I like
where
no
is it?
Captain. He's the main bird.
Look, man, when Jack's not here, the production value is going to tank. That's just how it is.
Yeah, if you guys haven't noticed, Jack Nolan is not here. But for our Sean East main bird of the week, I'm going to give this one out to the Cheez-It Bowl. I've seen a couple bowls that are having some fun here. Duke's Mayo Bowl was having a little bit of fun. The bird connection in here is that they did post a logo for South Carolina because ESPN projected South Carolina against Illinois. But a lot of these are the same. There's a lot of Alabama against Illinois. Illinois was the lone Big Ten from all of these outlets: Action News Network, 247, CBS, Sporting News, The Athletic, USA Today, Athlon Sports, and go on and on and on. 2 ESPNs on there, but only one that has Illinois and South Carolina. I just find this fun when bowls do this. I think besides you, Payton, no one loves bowls more than the bowl media operators.
You gotta, if you're running a bowl media account, you absolutely gotta post things like this. If you're looking for a Mizzou bowl update, I think that you're probably looking at best case scenario like a Music City against like a fun little Big Ten team, like maybe a Nebraska matchup, or potentially out west in Las Vegas. You could get someone like Washington, USC, Colorado is in that mix potentially if they don't make the Big 12 title game. Lots of fun opportunities for Mizzou. So they'll probably get Gator Bowl against Duke.
Yeah. I think the one thing for Mizzou is they don't want it to, or it doesn't want it to overlap with that Illinois Missouri men's basketball game. We saw a couple.
I don't think it's possible this year.
Not possible this year. Yeah, we did. We did look at that. We looked at the bowl schedule and there were no games that overlapped. Payton, your main bird of the week.
My main bird of the week is going to be Brandon Crawford, who had a very rough final season with the Cardinals. But before that, he had a lot of really good ones with the San Francisco Giants. He has officially announced his retirement. Brandon Crawford, 14 seasons, man. Can you believe that? It feels like it was just yesterday. 3 All-Star selections, 4 Gold Gloves, and a Silver Slugger Award, if you can believe that. and 2 World Series titles. So Brandon Crawford hanging him up. It's the end of a childhood era.
Yeah, it seems like every other week you're going to see somebody retire from when we were growing up. Very sweet lefty swing for a guy who was gloved first. Jack's main bird of the week is the turkey that you will be eating, or you've already eaten on Thursday. Maybe you're having your leftovers while you listen to this episode. But Mizzou joined into what you've seen probably a lot of social media accounts for sports teams across the country, videoing their players, saying, what are they going to have at Thanksgiving? What are they bringing to the table? Did start off with Luther Burden. A lot of other guys kind of pitched in as well. Payton, I know you don't like meat. You're a vegetarian. What are you looking forward to? What have you already had? Because by the time people are listening to this, you've already had your Thanksgiving dinner.
I've probably had a lot of stuffing. I'm a big stuffing guy on Thanksgiving. What about you?
Yeah, me as well. Told my mom that I can just eat that by itself. I think the last couple of years coming back from college, I probably sat in front of my TV playing video games before I had to go back to classes, and I was just stuffing my face with stuffing. Best thing you learned, Payton?
Best thing I learned this week, CFP rankings are out once again. People are outraged once again about something. The only thing I cared about was Missouri, and they are ranked number 21, right in front of a pretty funny gaggle of teams. Barry Odom and the UNLV running Rebels are right behind them at 22. The Illini are behind them at 23. One of those teams is going to get to be in the Citrus Bowl, by the way, and it ain't the one that's ranked higher. Kansas State is 24. Thank you for selling out Missouri's games this year, Kansas State. And Colorado, do you believe now? And Missouri's right behind Texas A&M. So the winner of, again, despite being just one spot behind them, there is zero world that exists where Missouri will be in the SEC title game this year, and Texas A&M has to win one game to make it. So it's all pointless and it's all meaningless.
Every man a Wildcat. Ever since I've learned what that acronym means, I cannot stop saying it in my head when I see that Kansas State logo. Yep. Sticking to the World College Football for the best thing I learned this week, the Broyles Award nominees were announced this week. Here are the ones for the SEC if you're watching with us on the YouTube. Blake Baker, first one kind of jumps off the page, not even just Corey Batoon, seeing him there for Missouri. But LSU nominated Blake Baker. For how much we've heard, the flack for Blake Baker this past month, I do kind of find it just a little bit funny. Just where that defense has kind of gone, just where that LSU season has gone.
Yeah, no, it's I think almost just like some artificial inflating of the numbers there. But Batoon would not have been my pick for Mizzou. I think he's been fine this year. I don't think he's as bad as some people think he is. I just don't think he has the dogs to do a lot of great stuff right now, and I still think he's been fine for the most part. If I were nominating someone, I might nominate Brandon Jones, maybe Curtis Looper. What about you, Kenny? I think those would probably be the first two that jump out for this year.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the first two names that popped in my head. Maybe to like even someone on that defensive line. Brian Early's first year coaching the edge rusher.
Al Davis
has had a good unit in that middle of the field, or the middle of that defensive line. Those were probably the ones that I was thinking about as well.
Yeah.
All right, best thing that Jack learned this week, I actually gave it to him. He couldn't think of anything fun. But Dude Perfect will be the final regular season guest picker. I guess not even the final regular season guest picker because there was the Army-Navy game. But of this season, of the regular season before we get to the Army-Navy game, the Texas A&M versus Texas, renewed rivalry. Going with Dude Perfect. I was trying to think about it if someone made more sense. Johnny Manziel never actually, or not even actually, he never played Texas. Like he wasn't a part of that rivalry. He was only the starting quarterback.
SEC A&M.
He was SEC A&M. But I think it's still kind of funny that they went with Dude Perfect.
They should have had Justin Tucker do this.
Yeah, that would have gone over really well.
That would have gone awesome in College Station.
For those that don't know, Justin Tucker, who is kind of struggling right now, the back end of his NFL career, made the game-winning field goal against Texas A&M the last time these two teams played. Anything else? I mean, any other people that you would have thought of that maybe worked a little bit better for A&M?
From A&M, not really. I mean, it would have had to almost be exclusively athletes if you didn't do Dude Perfect. I mean, who else has gone to A&M?
You'd also have to think of someone that was during that era that lived through the A&M Texas rivalry.
Yeah.
As a student, as a fan, you can go with someone like Johnny Manziel, but he didn't play in that rivalry. And when you kind of go back that far, it's just no one really jumps off the page to me from that era, because you've seen guys over the last couple years that have come out of A&M, like Christian Kirk, not the biggest name, but for some reason that comes to mind. Wide receiver, played for the Cardinals there for a little bit.
Yeah.
But I mean, Kevin Sumlin, but he never actually coached against Texas. He was in the first year when they moved to the
Kevin
SEC.
Sumlin.
And that's what I'm saying. No one jumps off the page for me.
They would literally. That's the last coach I think they'd ever wheel out for a game day picker involving Texas A&M. I'm looking through some notable alum. There's just not a lot of good options, dude. There really isn't. Like the only actor I think I know for sure off this list is Rip Torn. Do you even know who that is? I know who Rip Torn is because I've seen his face. That's it. Did Von Miller play in the Big 12?
He did, but it's also
It could have
something
been
that
him,
he had the
then.
game this week. Correct?
There's planes. He could have made it. But I mean, nobody in music really sticks out. There's just not a lot of good options. It's a military school. Like it's like a lot of military people come from it. So I think Dude Perfect is actually not a bad shout.
Dude Perfect, the military of YouTube.
Yeah. So.
Payton, got a joke before we close the show?
I sure do, Kenny. This one comes from our favorite TV series, TV series, The Today Show. Kenny, did you hear about the one about the claustrophobic astronaut?
He needed space.
Yep, he just needed a little space.
These ones are getting a little easy, Payton. I think we should probably work on them a little bit more. But that's going to do it for.
Might have been studying the list.
I have the list. I can find them if I really wanted to. That's going to do it for this episode of The Unwritten Rule. I didn't even mention at the beginning that Jack wasn't with us, but he's still with us on this earth. He just wasn't with us for the show. Sorry if that came off the wrong way. But I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving. By the time you listen to this, you've already had your Thanksgiving dinner, but you're enjoying your leftovers, and you're going to enjoy the Mizzou game this weekend and have a great extended weekend, hopefully, and a great Cyber Monday, Peyton's favorite day of the year. But until then, have a great weekend. Have some great days off, and we will see you on Monday.